A student simplified this expression and made 3 errors, and we are going to find them. So if you remember from 201 and 202, when you have a negative in front of parentheses like this, that really means that we have a -1, right? And we have to distribute. So when I distribute, -1 times 3.71b would be -3.71b. And -1 times -15, a negative times a negative equals a positive, so that should be +15. So we come to our first mistake because this part is correct, right? Remember that subtracting 3.71b is the same as adding a -3.71b, so that part is fine, but we should have gotten a +15, and this student got a -15. So that is mistake number 1. The student forgot to distribute the -1 to the -15, which would make it a +15. All right, let's look at the next mistake. So now let's look at what we have in step 1 and then what happened in step 2. So when I look from step 1 to step 2, I'm going to be comparing any differences, right? Comparing the steps and seeing if anything's different. So this term stayed the same. This -11 isn't right here, but I see it over here, so that's fine. This plus a -3.71b moved over here, but there's a problem. It was a -3.71b, and now it's positive. Where did the negative go? They just dropped it. So the second mistake here is that the negative was just dropped, right? The negative, they forgot to write the negative when moving the term. So remember, when you use commutative property to move the order of the terms, to change the order, make sure that the sign for that number or for that term stays in front of it regardless of where you move it. Okay, so that's mistake number 2. They forgot to keep the negative with the 3.71b when they moved it. All right, we've got one more mistake to find. And so let's see what happened from step 2 to step 3. So from step 2 to step 3, it looks like we added some parentheses in here, right? So it looks like we just put parentheses here and here. That's fine, just grouping the b terms together. And then parentheses around -11 and -15, and we're adding. That's also fine. So no mistakes from step 2 to step 3. So that means our last mistake must happen from 3 to 4. So let's check it out. All right, so from step 3 to step 4, it looks like we're actually doing the addition, right? We're combining like terms. So let's check the math. We've got a -2.67b plus 3.71b. The signs are different, which means, right, they're on opposing teams. The positive team is going to win here, right? And by how much? We would have to do 3.71 minus 2.67. So we'll have to do a little borrowing, right? This will become a 6, that's an 11. We subtract, and because the positive team wins, it's going to be a positive 1.04b, so this is fine. All right, let's look at this last part. -11 minus 15. Remember that that's the same thing as saying -11 plus a -15, right? Subtraction is the same thing as adding a negative. So same signs, same team. We're just making that negative team larger. So this should equal -26. And when we look at what we have in the answer, there's our third mistake. negative 11 minus 15, or negative 11 plus negative 15 equals negative 26, not positive. On your test, your actual test, not your DBA, but your actual test, you will be given a problem like this, but you will only have to find one error. But it is going to be one of the 3 errors that I just talked about in this problem. I just put all 3 of them in one problem, okay? So on your test, you're only going to have to find one error, but it is going to be one of these 3 errors, right? On the DBA, you're going to be teaching me how to find all 3. Okay, let's look at the second question. So this is the second question for your DBA. We are given an equation, and we have to take this equation and we have to write a short word problem about a purchase that we made to illustrate it, okay? So if I look up at my equation, I've got 7x plus 10 equals 45. If this has to be about some sort of purchase, then it looks like I'm buying, I don't know, an X number of items that maybe each cost $7, right? Each cost $7. And then I'm paying another $10 for something else. And altogether I spent 45. So it might be something like this. I went to the store and I bought posters. Each poster was $7. Then I bought a book for $10. When I got to the register and paid, my total cost, or the amount of money I had to pay without tax, was $45. How many posters did I buy? Right? So that would be, you're going to come up with your own situation for the DBA, but that's an example that I would use for this situation. All right, so now we have to solve the equation showing all of our work. So let's do it. So I've got 7x plus 10 equals 45. And if you remember from the lessons where we solved two-step equations, it's important to look at the variable x, or whatever variable it is, a, b, x, m, and look at the order of operations that we would have to follow if we start with the x. So starting with the x, I would have to multiply that x by 7, and then I would have to add 10 to it. So now when I'm going backwards, I've got to undo each operation. So I have to undo this one first. And to undo adding 10, I have to subtract 10. So I'm going to do that from both sides. And I get 7x equals 35. All right, did that. Now I go back another step. I have to undo multiplying by 7. So I use the opposite of multiply, which is divide. So I divide by 7, divide by 7, and I get x equals 5. All right, I found my solution and I showed all of my steps. Let's look at the last part. The last part says, explain what the value of the variable represents. Well, if you remember when I talked about this equation and I set it up in my word problem, I said that I was buying posters that were $7 each, and then I bought a book, right, for $10, and then altogether this was my total cost, right? So if I bought posters that were $7 each, and I found that x is 5, and that's what I'm multiplying by the 7, then that's the number of posters, right? $7 each times the number that I purchased would give me the amount of money I spent on posters. So x is the number of posters that I purchased. Now, on your DBA, the equation is going to be the same, but you're going to come up with your own word problem, right? Then you're going to explain to me how to solve it and what your variable represents, because it won't be number of posters. That was mine. So it'll be whatever you choose to have it represent for your word problem. On the test, you will be given a problem similar to this. It will be the last question on the test, but you will be given a different equation, right? So you're going to have to come up with your own word problem again, solve it and show all your work, and then explain what the variable represents. All right? Let me know if you have any questions. Talk to you soon.